Awesome, rolling. Welcome to the Master Key System at Center for Spiritual Living, Asheville. Everybody take a deep breath. Let it go. That was me, emphatically letting it go. And taking another breath. As we move into that state of knowing the presence and the power of the divine, of the one that is in and through and as each one of us, moving through us, through our thought, through our intention, through the consciousness of power that we are. And I know that that one, being what we are, manifests as our life now. We use this key of thought and consciousness and clarity and intention and creation to manifest our lives in great and wonderful ways. Our lives get better and better and better. And with great gratitude for this gift of life, for being spiritual beings, having a physical experience, I simply release this into all that God is, knowing that God is all, as together we say, and so it is. Wonderful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. It's good to see you, Joe, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. Joe's been watching online and has decided to come poke his head in.
Decided to make the plunge.
There's people that watch
Good.
online and see
Good to
it.
be together.
See why you don't.
Who has not taken a class from me before? Wonderful. Wonderful. You are in for a treat. Because when we jump into this idea of classes, we have not only our own learning and transformation experience, but we get to share it with everyone else. We get to have connections, we develop friendships, we build community, and it ends up being a greater growth experience than we would have just by ourselves. That's why it's different to do it together than just to read a book. Or maybe read a book and then do a book with a workbook with it. I mean, you get information, but it's not a whole experience. It's more of a, oh, I understand that now, and maybe someday I'll incorporate that in my life. But when you're in a group with other people, it really, it facilitates the healing and learning and growing process. So I'm delighted that you're here. Welcome, 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 welcome. We are using the book, The Master Key System. How many people still do not have this book? Wonderful. You can get it right as you sit here online for free. And our website is back up again at www.cslasheville.org. There is a resources. It may say resources and downloads or resources and books. And once you get on there, just scroll down until you find the Master Key System. Y-S-T-E-M. The Master Key System, and that is available to you as a free download off our website. We have sold out of all of the regular paper books that we bought for the class. And if you have this book, something that was just brought to my mind a few moments ago, it's a little different. It's a little different than the book that I have or the book on the website, in that when a book is in public domain, anyone can do anything to it and then repackage it and sell it. So even though whoever did a little something to this one didn't put their name on the book anywhere, it has been tweaked. The actual book is still intact in its original form, and that comes under part 1, part 2, part 3. But what you'll find in this book is part 1 has a little explanation, and then it's a part 1 introduction, and then you get to part 1. And part 1 are just little one-line bullets. That's the writing, those are the writings of Charles Haanel. Nancy, do you know where the recorder is?
That was right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So once you get to the little one-liners, that's the book that Charles Haanel wrote. It's like this one is part 1, introduction to part 1, and then part 1. And you've got that much gathers more is true on every plane of existence, and that loss leads to greater loss is equally true. Now that's Charles Haanel, and the entire book is going to be in bullets like that, where you find paragraphs of someone espousing poetically their thoughts on the matter is not really Charles Haanel. It's the person who did that little bit of tweaking. Yes?
And the one that's online is which version?
Just Charles Haanel.
Just the bullets?
Yeah, yeah. And there was no way to know that we were buying somebody else's thoughts on it because their name is nowhere on the book. You know, a lot of times, like I was saying, when August Gold was here, she kind of redid Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, but her name was all over it. You know, revised and edited by August Gold and all of that. Most people, when they revise or edit a book in public domain, they'll do that, but this is not the case. So it's good stuff. Thank you, Nancy. It's good stuff. It's just not Charles Haanel.
It says on the back that Charles Haanel did the Q&A, because it says this is a complete edition and all that other stuff, but you're saying like the introductions and all that, they were not written by him?
Doesn't sound like his words.
Okay.
I mean, we'll look at it and get a little more information as time goes on, but I don't have that book. I've got the other book that's just got the bullets, so if you have questions like about the psychological matrix, is that what it is at the end of part 1? We'll have to learn about that one together, because I've never seen it before in my life. 2 weeks from today, what is today, the 7th? That makes it March 21st. There is no class. I confess I will be at the beach. So we will skip 1 week and 1 week only. And then we'll come back and I'll have a tan and I'll be much more patient, have a lot more compassion for people, and be able to stay right there with somebody for more than just Pardon me? So just keep that in mind that we won't have class 2 weeks from tonight. But I love Charles Haanel. He wrote this 2 years after Wallace Wattles wrote The Science of Getting Rich. And you can hear similar concepts in it. And I just, I talked a little bit about this yesterday. I just think about what must have been going on in this country at the turn of the century. We have these Phineas Parkhurst Quimby came in to town, and Antoine Mesmer. We had people hypnotizing. Antoine Mesmer brought a thing called mesmerism over to the United States from France, and he found a farm boy, a lad, a man, that he could hypnotize, and the farm boy would then say what the cure was that was needed for the person who came to him with an illness. And sure enough, they would go and mix up whatever or do whatever, and the person would get well, and there was an awakening to an idea that there was an intelligence going on beyond our physical awareness that was greater than we were, that knew stuff, and that we could start to access. We had Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science back in the late 1800s, and that started evolving. Remember, there were no antibiotics. The medical profession was barbaric at best, and people were very interested in not dying, and they had no other place to turn. So they were looking at this, the spiritualism movement was going, the transcendentalist movement was going. There was an awakening of consciousness in this country. And I just get the feel of it with the writers like Charles Haanel and Wallace Wattles, and the excitement that was in the air and the clarity that was going on. There is a greater reality and a truth here, and if we learn it, we can use it and we can do something different than we have now. And again and again and again, it is not for the few, it is for everyone. Everyone has this within them. And there is a logic to it, and there is a setup of argument in the dissertation of all of the parts and all of the bullets that lay forth a logical sequence of thought that say you can create your world. Not only that, but there is a power and a presence within you that is within everyone, and that it is greater than any force on earth. It is a very empowering concept. So I love this book. I love the way that it's clear and concise, and that it charts the way. You know, I don't want to spend too much mental energy trying to figure things out, frankly. I want someone to tell me this is the way that it works, and if you do this, you will have that result, and then I'll use my mental energy testing it out and doing it and seeing if I get the results. And I want you to know, for over 35 years, I've tested this stuff out and gotten results. So I'm sold on the system. And what Charles Haanel calls it is the master key system. One more side note before we jump into the material. And this is for you, because you come to Monday night class and you're my peeps. No, you got this. I usually wax my microphone. And that is that I just heard from Rob Wergen today. He's the man that does the healings on Wednesday. That he will be here this Wednesday, but then he will not be back until the last Wednesday of the month, which is the 30th. And chances are that's going to go down to once a month. So those of you who have been thinking, well, I'll come this week, or I'll come next week, or I'll bring my friends the next week, or whatever, just know that those ongoing Wednesday nights are probably not going to just continue to be available like they have been, like by this week, by 2 days from now. So I don't want anyone, because we've been announcing that he's going to be here every week in March, because that was what we understood, but things change, and I'm not at the beach yet, but I am opening up to this compassion and this flexibility that usually comes with the sound of waves. So even though that has been what we had set up, it's not happening anymore. And I don't know what that's going to be. It's not our event. We joyfully welcome him, because what he does is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my entire life. And so he could be here every Wednesday throughout the end of time, I would be fine with. And yet it's really his call where he does his work, and he does travel all over the country and goes to very large cities and has very, you know, in the world of the relative, very large groups of people and things like that. So if you want to see him come this Wednesday, don't come the next Wednesday, because you'll be disappointed and nobody will be here to hug you. Or the next Wednesday, and then he's going to be here the next Wednesday, and then I don't know what's going to happen after that, but you heard it here first. Just know that when you come to Monday night class, if there's good information to be had, I will give it to you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
We're all gonna go to the beach with you.
No, you're not.
Field trip?
Oh, wow.
So the very first paragraph of part 1, I don't know what page that is with you in your book, but it's before the little bullets of part 1. And the last line of it, I just thought was so clear. He says, the things of the world are fluid to a power within man by which he rules them. The things of the world are fluid, and they are fluid to a power within us. And it is through that power that we rule the things of the world. And so he's jumping in right away, saying that there is a malleableness, a plasticity of form. That form is not solid. That form is what he calls the world without. And that the plasticity and the malleability, the fluidity of things, they are, I'm trying to figure out his grammar here, they are fluid to us. And it is the power within us that rules that fluidity. So the first thing to understand, as we do with all metaphysical classes, is that we are not physical beings living in a physical world. Things are not as they seem at all. That most people believe that the world is set. And as we get into a greater physical, greater than the physical viewpoint, we see that the hard and fastness of physical form is not real. That it is an illusion. It is the illusion, the Maya of form. And that truly we are living from a different plane, a different realm of consciousness. And that the outer is always ruled by the inner. The form is always ruled by that which is within us. Now, most people don't know that, and so they expect to see things exactly the way that they were before, and so they recreate that over and over and over in their life. And then their expectations become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they don't realize that they are the ones who have manifested that which they expected to have. Instead of realizing we don't believe it because we see it because we believe it. And if we can begin harnessing the power within us, the way that we see things, the way that we react or respond to things, what we expect out of life, how we think about things, if we can begin to harness that power, we can affect the very form and molecules of our existence. So what kind of molecules would you like to affect? How about some molecules of money? How about some molecules of health? How about some molecules of happiness? What change would you like to see in your world? Some molecules of peace, molecules of love, some molecules of joy. And what he says is that if you are to have that, you must develop a consciousness for it. Consciousness is one of those old-timey metaphysical words that I usually stay away from because they can be confusing. You know, well, what's in your consciousness? You have a cold, you have the remnants of a fastly leaving respiratory infection. What's going on in your consciousness? I know damn well what's going on in my consciousness that I created this. I was somewhere I didn't want to be. I was smiling at people I didn't want to smile at and talking about things I didn't want to talk about. Instead of just being good old blunt Barbara, which probably had I allowed myself that gift, I would have left Utah without a respiratory infection, because it's kind of like what I've done for the last 2 weeks feels like, which is kind of like how I felt in Utah. I can't say it. I want to say it, but I can't say it. So, yes, that was in my consciousness, and that which was in my consciousness manifested in my physical reality. Now, what I'm still working on is how, when I knew what it was and practiced releasing, evidently not good enough yet. Why didn't it leave? But, you know, all things in perfect order. Life is good. It's going out the door. I know what I do and what I get. And you know, I keep saying for every time we stray from the path of pure love, we pay a price. We do. And every one of us does. So when we are compromising who we'd like to be, and you know, there's a season for everything. It really would have been inappropriate for me to go around and tell people off. That would not have been good for me or them or anybody. So I appreciate the social mores of certain events, and anytime that I'm holding myself back, I pay a price for it. I know I do. And I'm looking forward to the day when I don't feel that I have a self-imposed rule that I have to do that. Either that, or I just won't put myself in those positions anymore.
I'll vote for that.
Yeah, yeah. This is such a great teaching, and the only thing that we as a movement need to do is act in alignment with our teaching, is to be what we believe. If we believe that thought is creative, if we believe that we're creating our reality, how in the world can you blame anybody? I mean, how can we, especially at the upper echelons, the hierarchy of, of the whole spiritual movement, how can we blame people for stuff? How can we say it's about money when nothing is about money, it's all about consciousness? How can we do that? And when are we as a movement going to believe what we teach enough to actually act as if it's true, and then we won't have any of these problems and issues, and the world will be transformed, and it will be just peace and love and happiness and joy all the time. So I'm rooting for that. In the meantime, my amazing power may be best used by staying away. Just do your own thing in Asheville and let everything be okay. Yes, Linda?
I think you should be the keynote speaker before those people start.
That's not going to happen. Thank you, though. What did happen was I gave away 300 copies of the audio recording of the original Science of Mind textbook, which also had a PDF version of the textbook. That's on the website too. There's so much great stuff on this website for free. So I handed one to every minister who was there, and then afterwards, I just walked around and handed them to anybody. Like, did you get a copy of the textbooks? I said, no, here. And they would go, oh, thank you. But what a lot of those ministers said they were going to do was go and duplicate that CD and give one to everyone in their community. So that I felt was very effective in raising consciousness and spreading science of mind and doing what I love to do, which is that. So we have this idea that says we are powerful, creative, spiritual beings alive and well on planet Earth. We are not mere humans. We are not governed by fate or an outside deity that's already decided what we can and cannot do, be, or have, that the power is within us. However, most of us do not know how to use the power. We don't know yet how we manifest our world because it looks so logical. It was like that. We saw it. We knew it was like that. And then it was like that. What could be more logical? I knew that that person was a dirty, rotten rack and fratchet, and then they were a dirty, rotten rack and fratchet. So what could be more logical than that? Most people don't understand that they are the one at the point of creation, manifesting their world through their thoughts and their feelings and their beliefs and their intentions. And so here we come along and we go, wait a minute, just because something is so doesn't mean that it's so. We make it so. We are the ones who, by our beliefs and our thoughts, look at something and have that manifest in our lives. So way back in 1912, Charles Haanel is saying, The mind is creative. And he also goes on to say, the brain is the instrument of mind. Very important distinction. Your brain is not mind. If your brain was able to think by itself, you could take it out of somebody's head and put it in a jar and put electrodes to it and it would think. It can't. When you think about what you're thinking about, who is that? Who is that part of you that steps back and thinks about what you're thinking about? That little voice maybe that's even talking to you while you're talking to yourself. Yeah, go do that. Go ahead. Go, quick, quick, quick. And the little voice goes, now wait a minute. You may want to just take a deep breath and check this out. Remember what happened last time that you did that. It may be a wiser choice just to let this one go. You've got two different thoughts going on inside of your head. He's saying that mind is creative. There is an intelligence. There is a creative force that connects all of us, that connects everyone, everything, everywhere. You know, we call it spirit or the divine, or some of us call it God, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. There is an energy that is a higher reality than any physical form. There is an energy and a power within you that is more, that is greater than any of your physical stuff. I don't care what your physical stuff is. I don't care what your story is. That which is in you is greater than any of that. And he's saying that we live in two different realms, and this is going to go all the way through the book. He says there is a world within. I'm going to just go ahead and stretch this out. And a world without. So let's go with the easy one first. What is the world without?
Appearance.
Appearance. I need my spell check. There we go. Appearance. Is that how you spell it?
No, it's A-A-R.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
A-P-E-A-R-A-N-C-E.
You know, I typed for so long that my fingers will do it on a keyboard. What else is in the world without?
Physical.
Physical.
Wealth.
Impersonal.
No. Who said impersonal? Hey, Drew. The world without would very much have personality to it. I already killed my microphone yesterday. It would have personality to it. It would be a more personal experience. Actually, in the world within and the world without, we're not going to go to the impersonal part of it.
Perception? Health.
Pardon me?
Reflection from within.
Health, we're going to put health in both of these. But yes, the outer manifestation of health would be in the world without. What's going to be in the world within?
Perception.
Thought, perception,
Health.
health. I'm going to put a consciousness of health.
Well, consciousness of thought and feeling and power.
Thought, feeling, that's enough. Thoughts and feeling. We can have a consciousness of power. So, one thing we want to get really clear, because he is setting the groundwork for this idea that there's a key. Didn't you always want to go, what's the key? What's the key to being happy, to having my life work? What's the key? Well, the big first step is to know that there is a world within and a world without, and they are not the same thing. For that matter, which one comes first?
Within.
First. Second. This is cause. And this is effect. To understand that everything outside of us is but an afterthought, an effect, a second thing to that which is within us gives us what?
Power.
Power to, for what?
Create.
To create and to control what's without.
Power to create and to control that which is without. Power to change. What are you going to say, Michaela? Okay. It gives us the power. How many times have you looked at your life and thought, the amount of money I have in the bank has power over me. The job I have has power over me. This person has power over me. This diagnosis has power over me. My education has power over me. My gender has power over me. All of those things. How many times have you looked at your life and thought, that rules me? I know I did. I spent at least 2 or 3 decades doing that. Even once I was well into this teaching, I was still thinking that that had power over me. And the idea that we can move into a sense that there is something within us that has power over everything. Tom?
What was it that took away your power when you were at that meeting? Why couldn't you speak your truth? What was it?
Oh, I couldn't talk because John was at that moment the president of the organization. I was under a microscope by people just wanting to hurt him. I know that. That's part of the political game. And I don't care whether it's national politics or spiritual movement politics. Politics are awful because they're not real. They're not real.
It's definitely the world without.
It is. It's the world without. And so the same reason I put on clothes in the morning to go outside, you know, there are certain rules that I have agreed to live by, and I'm not willing to pay the price to go against that. I'm not willing to drive 150 miles an hour down the road next to a policeman. I'm not willing to do things that are completely, I know are going to cause me grief. And in that moment, I knew that that was going to cause me and someone that I love very much grief.
So you didn't give up your power, you made a choice.
I did, but it's still, I got sick. Because I just love to be me. I love to be out there. I love to say what I think and live out loud and be who I am, and come hell or high water, I'll pay the price for it, as long as it's me. If it's not me and it includes someone else, and granted there are some codependency issues, I absolutely understand. I've been married to John for 26 years. I understand those, but still those are choices that I make. So that's what it was, Tom. When we realize that the outer is a reflection of the inner, and some might say, well, Barbara, you created all of that because it was what you expected and what you believed would be true, and I'll give you that. Absolutely, I did that. And maybe when I'm a little bit more enlightened, I won't have to do that. So when we realize that the world without is a reflection of the world within, we can stop trying to manipulate the problems in our lives. We can stop trying to manipulate the people or blame the experiences or change the circumstances, when if we have the same world within and we change the circumstances in our life, what are we going to recreate? Hello? We're going to recreate the same circumstances. Have you not done that in relationships? If you don't heal whatever's going on with you, and you go from one relationship to another, are you really changing relationships? No, you're just getting a different face. Different, not last, now we get a different last name. No, the same relationship, because the relationship is with me. So when we don't work on the world within, we recreate the world without. And so this is such an easy way to look at it for me. Am I looking at the world without, or am I looking at the world within? And if I'm looking at the world without, I'm spinning my wheels. I'm dealing at the level of effect, I'm dealing at the level of conditions, and I'm not going to change anything. I can work my tail off, and I won't change anything unless I go inside of myself and change what is in the world within. And where do I do that?
Thoughts.
You do it with your thoughts. You do it with your beliefs and your ideas. You know, sometimes if we just have a belief that we are going to get hurt at any moment, and we haven't healed that and released that and let it go, we'll create circumstances where we get hurt. And then that only reinforces the belief that we can get hurt at any moment. So at some time, we have to stop the insanity. Yes, Laura?
So, how do we change those thoughts? Because, like, you know, there's mantras where you kind of say the opposite. So, one of the things is, like, when I'm cleaning my house on the weekend, I'm just like, oh, it's never done, I'm always cleaning, and I'm like, I want to change that, but saying, oh, I love what I'm doing, you know, isn't authentic. Like, it's not authentic to be like, I love cleaning.
I hire
What would be-
someone.
That's the money first, but we'll work on that. So, until then,
If I can't do it joyfully, I would look at the mess. I mean, I would, and I would use it as a spiritual exercise to allow myself to get to the place where I wanted to clean. Either because every dish in the house was dirty, or every piece of clothing was dirty, or I couldn't walk from one point to the other because there was so much stuff on the floor. But if you really don't want to do it, don't do it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Doing what you don't want to do just keeps you trapped in a position of powerlessness that you can't have your life the way you want it, and that you are enslaved to this idea of clean. What is clean anyway? Europeans think that we're all way too clean and we get way too sick because of it, because we don't expose ourselves to enough germs.
okay, so I obviously do want my house to be clean.
And you would get there if you sat there and let it get dirty enough. And then when you cleaned it, you would be cleaning it out of joy.
I can attest to this.
Hire a maid.
You know, whose schedule are you on that you're cleaning on Saturday? Wouldn't you rather go for a walk? Wouldn't you rather go be with friends?
Well, I actually purposely set up a scenario where I sent the request for the maintenance man to come on Monday, so I would be motivated to clean on Sunday.
But that's still being powerless to your own orchestration. You had to make yourself. You didn't want.
I appreciate it when it's clean.
Sure. But do you want it clean enough to clean it? And if you don't clean it, that's all. It's okay. It's okay to be dirty. It's okay to have your clothes on the floor. It's okay to have dirty dishes in the sink. It's okay for your garbage to stink. It's okay. I think that the pressure that you put yourself under does a lot more harm than living in a house that is not clean. And so I just want to give you permission. If you need anybody to give you permission, Laura, Barbara Waterhouse has given it. You do not need to clean. You don't. Go out and buy new clothes. Okay? And when you want to clean, you can clean, but only clean as much as you want to. You know, clean the bathroom and then be done. Next month, clean the kitchen. Okay? Because the world within is so important that when you're not feeling powerless and when you're not feeling forced to do what you don't want to do, you are free to use the amazing power of God as you, and creating money will be one of the many things that happen. To where then you can hire someone to clean, and Susie Green cooks, you can hire her to cook for you, you can hire all kinds of people. Do what you want to do. Do what brings you joy. It's all about the joy. Okay? Don't give it away to A dish? No. Susan and then Olympia.
So back to you and the premise you put out there, and I'll relate it to myself. I walked into my daughter's house and my granddaughter sneezed and coughed in my face. And my thoughts were, uh-oh, now I'm probably going to get sick. And as much as I try to reverse those thoughts, but with you or me, I'm in a place that's ruled by rules. And I think if I'm going to withhold my truth, I'm going to get sick. But to turn that around and say, I can withhold my truth when it's best for everybody, and I will not get sick.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
You know, I haven't finessed social grace. I never did. I grew up without social teachings. You know, the best that I had was school. And then I was a wild and crazy teenager into alcohol and drugs, sex, and rock and roll. You know, that was me. And I never learned how to be gracefully social. So I've embraced just being me and let the chips fall where they will. If someone has their feelings hurt, that's their feelings, not mine, and I will pay the price for their reaction to what I say.
Which is wonderful, and you are a valuable role model. I could only speak for myself. For me, you are a role model of freedom and running amok and just being.
It's all about the joy.
I second that
For
motion.
me, to walk into a situation and not be fearful of health conditions, and I need to tell myself, and I continue to tell myself, I'm bigger than the germs, if indeed they do exist, et cetera, et cetera. But it's an unpleasant battle for me. And even that, I'd like to change it to it, this is a fun
Right.
journey.
I remember once I went to see someone who had active tuberculosis, someone that I loved dearly. And I went to the hospital and she was in quarantine, an older woman, and they wanted me to put on a gown and a mask and all of that, and I realized it would scare her. So I said, no, I'm not gonna do that, I'm fine. And I went in there and I treated with her, and I hugged her, and I kissed her, nobody touched her, she was in quarantine, this little old lady had tuberculosis. And I walked out of there and never thought another thought about it. And never had any issue with that. But then, you know, I too have been in situations where I've had that thought of, I'm going to get sick. But I can usually master that in that, no, I'm not. I have the world's best immune system. I don't have time to get sick. For that matter, I'm going to go do something right now instead of think about this. And usually that's when those kinds of things just go into the nothingness from whence they've come. When I find that I'm susceptible to race consciousness and germs and things like that is when I'm not paying attention and I'm just caught up in the experience.
Reactive.
Yeah, the last time I got really sick was when we were in Las Vegas and John was running for president. And I was under a lot of stress because there were a lot of people who didn't want him to be president and they were very vocal about it. And in your face and yelling at you, these are our spiritual leaders kind of thing. And the other time was right before I went to Thailand and I wasn't willing to say how much I didn't want to go to Thailand. You know, I don't ever want to leave the country again after going to Thailand for 2 weeks. So when I'm unconscious, I tend to be susceptible to things. When I'm conscious, that's when I can say, oh, no, that can't hurt me. I'm Barbara Waterhouse. I'm way too, you know, on the ball to get sick. I've got places to go and people to see and things to do and life is too great. I'm not going to get sick, and I don't. But when I go unconscious and I allow myself to feel like I'm not in a position of power, that's when I get sick. So I don't want to plant seeds in anybody else's mind, but it may be something for us to realize that if we can wake up, maybe with the first sniffle or cough or fever, and go, wait a minute, what's going on? I'm dealing with the world without. I don't work well in the world without. I work well with the world within, and when I'm clear about what's going on within me, my world without falls into place and everything is great. Olympia, who had their hand up over here?
I did that.
Okay, Robert and then Kristen.
I was going to say, you said at the very end, she said she didn't want to clean so much. And you said it's about the joy in life. So I have a treatment that I've been doing. It says, I find a playful approach to getting through the stacks of paperwork on my desk, the dirty duds in the hamper, and the bills that need bailing out, because these are the events that make up my life. And I move through them with ease and joy.
And then you feel happy about doing it.
And I clean
Yeah.
my house.
Either do it with joy or don't do it. Great, Robert.
Mine's been covered.
Okay, Kristen.
I was just gonna say on the being sick thing, because I spend a lot of time around sick people, I just go, oh, I don't believe in germs, and I'll tell everybody. They'll be like, oh, eat this, cover up with that, and I don't believe in germs, and I haven't been sick yet this winter, so.
And truly, germs are not real.
Right.
It is our thought about germs that are real. How can the mother of the traditional family take care of the husband and the 2 or 3 kids with the flu and not get sick? She is covered with snot. She may be covered with vomit and all kinds of things. But then when they are better and back to work and back to school, when every germ is long dead, she can get sick.
It's okay.
It's okay for her to get sick. Now it's her turn to get sick. So how does that work? It doesn't work in the realm of germ. It just doesn't. The germs are not, I mean, you can have a resistance so you don't get sick, but then you can't just take no germ and develop the flu, the same flu that everybody else had. There's no germ to bring to life. They're all dead. So it's the idea about germs. It's the same thing that they're proving with all this genetic research, is that you can have a genetic predisposition to something, and you can either open that up in your body, usually by seeing someone else have it, or a fear of it, or stories about how you have it, or you can close that down. You can be an adopted child and not know that you're adopted and believe that you have a genetic predisposition to something, and you will have that, even though there's no genetics to it. You can be an adopted child to a family that doesn't have that, and nobody knows your family history, and you don't get what you would have gotten had you been raised in that family. They're learning more and more about these things that say it's our thought, our belief and our expectation that opens that experience up in our physical bodies. Who just had their hands up?
I did.
Susan and
It's
then
like the
Jane.
story either you or John told about somebody getting blisters 2 weeks after the
John
fire
did.
walk.
That was me.
That was
You.
my sister. 2 weeks after walking on fire, and you heard people talking about their feet being blistered.
And then all of a sudden I got a blister 2 weeks after. No blisters for 2 weeks.
I love it.
Jane and then Joe.
Okay, two things. I used to teach, and every winter those students would be just walking. It was like a hospital ward with all
Petri dishes.
I never, I just never, and I never missed a day. Never been sick. And the other thing was, when my husband was in a nursing home, everybody, there'd be these viruses running wild. I just never thought about getting sick, and I never did get sick there either.
You are stronger than you let on, Jane.
I don't know exactly why.
Joe.
I was just going to say, the main thing that I say to myself that really helps me, what you focus on expands.
Right?
That's probably the main thing, and whatever you affirm to yourself, if you don't want something, then step back from it, and I'll literally sit there and affirm something, write it down. You got to program yourself, and however you got to rewrite your circuits in your brain.
What fires together, wires together. So when you think a thought, your brain actually grows together. And when you start thinking a different thought, it's not that easy. People go, well, that's easy to say, just think a different thought. It's tough thinking a different thought. That's because you are pulling tissue apart in your brain. And then there's that time where they're all just, they don't know what to do. You don't know who you are. You don't know what to go on until you start forcing yourself to think the way that you want to think, to have the life that you want. And then that grows together, so it gets easier and easier and faster to think those thoughts, so that the positive thoughts become your default. When someone goes, boo, you go, everything's fine. Instead of it used to be, boo, everything's terrible and lost. We create a new default inside of us. Drew.
Yeah, I look at it as rewriting data, like you were saying. And I was told that for every conscious bit of data we have, there's like another million bits that we're not conscious of. And rewriting that is like, it's a simple thing, but it's the hardest thing. But it gets easier and easier the more you do it. And then you're just like, oh, this is easy.
Right.
You know?
Disciplining your thoughts will be the hardest thing you ever do. It's what most people do not do. They're not willing to commit to actually thinking about what they think about and then changing what they're thinking. And it's not, one day a week, it's 24/7, or the old patterns will just suck you right back in. And then it'll be, 3 years later, and you'll go, I used to go to that center, and things were really working out, and I don't know what happened. I started hanging around with those old people and doing things that I used to do, and now, I don't know, I'm living on the streets and all right, maybe not like that. But truly, if you don't keep, they used to say you had to be vigilant, and I didn't like that, because I didn't want that level of discipline, but I'm thinking maybe those are good words. You're vigilant in that you are constantly aware. You're not afraid, you're not on guard, you're just aware. You're being consciously conscious, you're being mindful of the thoughts that are going through your head. You're being mindful of the feelings that you're feeling, because those are good clues. Abraham's great for that. He says, if you're not feeling a good feeling, something's wrong. Something's wrong if you're not feeling. And what you need to do is seek out a better feeling. It doesn't matter what direction you go or how you do it. I love the example of the chocolate milkshake. Whatever makes you happy. The important thing is to get happy. Because if you don't get happy, you're going to go down a spiral of negativity, and your emotions are going to feed that, and it's very familiar, and then you're going to be down there, and you'll forget who you are and what you've learned, usually until things blow up and somebody goes, wait a minute, what happened here? What's going on? So what you want to do is you want to find a better thought. Remember, it's not the first thought. Don't freak out. Everybody goes, oh, I thought a negative thought, all is lost. No. You always get a second chance. So if you thought a thought that doesn't really serve you, think another thought. Get a second thought. And then find a feeling that feels good. And they don't have to go hand in hand. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to do this and I'm going to feel good about it. I'm going to do this and go feel good about something else. Just feel good. Think a thought. I can do this. I'm powerful. I have all of the support of the universe for this. It wouldn't have come to me if I couldn't have it. That's one of the things that I love about this teaching. If you have an idea, it must exist in physical form, because there cannot be a whole in an infinite. Otherwise, you don't have an infinite. You have the infinite and then that whole. And now there's not one, there's two. Time and space no longer hangs together. We are not here. So if you have a thought about anything, it has to exist at some level in physical form, and you can have that manifest in your life. So you start telling yourself that. Well, I've got a dream. I want to go to Tahiti. I want to go to whatever. I want to build fields of windmills. I want to do this. I want to do that. Whatever it is, of course you can do that. Not only can you do it, it already exists at some level. Just waiting for you to stay in that vibratory alignment of possibility and have it come into physical form. And we do that all the time. We do that every time we awaken in the morning. We put the molecules of our lives together. We do it every time we look at our bodies. We put our bodies together. every time we look at our face, was there just a flash of light? Someone's here. Every time we look at our face, we put our face together. Every time we look at our bank account, we put our bank account together. We are constantly doing that. Most people are doing it unconsciously, in that they expect to see what they saw before, and so that's what they see. And it makes perfect sense to them, except they don't realize that they are only looking at the world without. And when you look at the world without, and that's all you see, that's all you will get. When you start looking at the world within, through your thought, your perception, through your feelings, developing a consciousness of health, of wealth, of power, then your world without will change in what people will call miraculous ways. But the first thing to do is to disengage from what so many people think is real. This is not real. This is real. Inside of me is the only thing real in my life. None of this is real. And when we can disengage from thinking this is real, we can loosen it back into the fluidity that Charles Haanel talks about, that is governed by the power within us. We are the ones that say how much money we have, what our lives look like, how our bodies are, how our relationships are, what quality of life we have. We are the ones who decide that. And nothing on the outside can make us have any kind of a life. Only that which is within us can make us have any kind of a life. So we can have a life that lifts us up, or we can have a life that puts us down. It's all inside of us. And when we can see the difference, then we can embrace the power. If I look at what is something that may be outside of me, let's say I get fired from my job and I look at that and I go, oh no, this is a disaster. This is just going to be terrible. I'm going to have to go on unemployment. I'm going to have to take in roomers. I just don't know what I'm going to do. All is lost. If we look at it that way, that's what it will be. If we can get a hold of ourselves and say, no, this is a neutral event, and I can make of it what I want. Not only is it a neutral event, but since everything in life is expanding and supporting me, then this must be a positive event. So even though it may look like something that is going to be a problem, I know that there's a blessing in here, that there's growth in here, there's prosperity in here, there's opportunity in here, there's freedom in here, and I'm going to claim it as such. And then the world without expands. Yes, Chris. Speaking of jobs.
I just recently let my job go, and the person that was my supervisor decided that I needed to leave a little earlier than I had planned. And that was absolutely awesome, because I have been in Florida for an entire week. I'm getting ready to go to Cayman Islands, and I've been sitting around doing absolutely nothing.
You're going to Cayman. Where are you going to Cayman? No.
So, you know, it's been a phenomenal experience.
Right. Someone else could have looked at that and had a miserable time. And instead, you were going down the party road, which means that with that mindset and those emotions, that which you are attracting to you must be in alignment with that, and you are going to have a wonderful outcome of this that is in alignment with happiness and joy and opportunity. Yeah, it's got to be that way. Let's break. Oh, come on back. On back. Oh, here's Drew. Thank you. Come on in, Drew.
I got that. On with it.
So Drew is sharing some fascinating information with me. Drew. Sharing some fascinating information with me during the break, and I said I wanted to share it with you because it's really good stuff. There you go.
In like special operations forces, SAS, special forces, training, they teach you and it's an unwritten rule, and they also teach you, but like Navy SEALs, if they're all carrying a big wooden pole together in training, and you have a negative thought, or you're having a bad day, to not verbalize it, because it will come from your mouth to everybody else's ears and make it real, and take everybody else down. So, in a lot of training like that, you don't verbalize the negative, because everybody knows the negative.
So in your Special Forces training, one of the things you learned was if you think it and it's not going to be helpful, don't let it out your mouth. Have you ever told yourself things and then you just lost all your strength? Have you ever been almost to where you wanted to go, and you start telling yourself how hard it is, how it's not going to happen, and then what little strength you had goes away? Or you can do the opposite. You can get there and know for sure you're going to stumble and fall in the next 2 seconds, or pass out, or whatever, and start telling yourself that you can make it. This is what sports athletes do all the time, and then that makes it real. So when you start letting it out of your mouth, it starts affecting the world without. It starts vibrating and attracting and reflecting and coalescing and actually bringing into form that which you said. It made it real. So what Charles Haanel says, I have 8 pages of notes here, I'm still on the first one. We are in part 1, and if you bought a book from the bookstore, the part of your book that matches my book, every sentence has a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, all of your sentences are numbered. So read until you get to the part that's got all the numbers, and that's the part that I know for sure he wrote. So he says that you're going to learn a method of thinking. He says you're going to learn to control your thoughts, and part of controlling your thoughts is learning how to generate certain thoughts. And what he wants you to practice on is to generate thoughts of courage, of hope, of enthusiasm, of confidence, of trust, and of faith. So how would you generate thoughts of courage, hope, enthusiasm, confidence, trust, and faith? How would you do that? How do you generate? Do you have a thought generator machine? You plug it into the wall? Joe?
Speak it.
You speak it and make it real. What happens if you're having trouble speaking it? What might you do to help yourself?
Write it down.
Write it down. And then if you write it down, you can pick it up and read it. And what happens if you read it and you don't feel it? Read it again. Read it anyway. Don't sell yourself out for a feeling. People say, oh, Barbara, I just didn't feel it. So what? So what? Feelings are an effect. They're very helpful in generating energy. But feelings are an effect. Don't let them be a cause. If you think a thought enough, you will generate the feeling of that thought. So just because you happen to have a random emotion floating around, don't stake your whole life on it. Practice being a thought generator. And be very discerning as to what kinds of thoughts you generate. You may have noticed that some people that you get around generate certain kinds of thoughts. And if you're around them enough, you start generating that thought too. Now that can be a very positive thing, like coming to this class. All of a sudden you guys are all thinking thoughts about, hey, I can generate thoughts. I can think a thought. I can work on the world within. I can manifest my dreams. I can have what I want. I'm something pretty special. Or you can be around some other kind of an environment where you allow the other person's generated thoughts to bring out those same thoughts in you, and they're not positive and uplifting. What should you do if you find that happening?
Walk away.
Walk away, or if you can't walk away or you don't choose to pay the price for walking away, what can you do?
Cancel it.
Turn it,
Cancel it. Go ahead, Jane.
turn it aside,
Turn it aside.
Well, until then, you're not,
turn
you
away
don't
from
wanna
it.
have negative interactions or
You can
something.
tell them I don't want to hear your negativity. What else can you do?
Listen to music.
I
One,
repeat affirmations to myself.
you can generate the thoughts that you want. Sometimes being around thoughts that you don't want really helps you realize what you do want. Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not living in their universe. I'm so glad I'm not experiencing the effects of their causes. I'm going to generate my own thoughts here. And you can be very much like the monks that just constantly chant a mantra in the back of their mind, even though they're having a conversation with someone. It just keeps going. So you can go cancel, cancel, cancel if you want, but also flip it around to something positive. You can go, that's not for me, but then what is for you? My life is great. I'm rich, I'm healthy, I'm happy. You're a miserable SOB, but I'm happy. My life is going great. Remember, you follow every negative with a positive and stay with that energy so you don't put that negativity out there. Generate the thoughts that you want to have in the world within. Because whatever you have in the world within, you will have in the world without. And back in 1912, this was hot off the press stuff. This was a brand new way of looking at life. He talks about thought being energy. He talks about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. All right, I'm letting go of the world within and the world without. I just think it's a very easy and simple way of getting it. The world within. What world are we living in right now? The world within or the world without? And we're living in the world without. Well, move out and go back where you belong to the world within. You can ask yourself those questions. What world am I living in right now? What am I letting control me? What is the boss of me? The world within, the world without. If I'm in the world within, I am the boss of it. So he's going to use some words here. He's got omnipotent, omnipresent,
Well, this is before Ernest Paul.
yes, this was exactly. Oh, Ernest is coming down off of his pedestal. Ernest said he never made anything up. He only synthesized the great thinkers of the ages. So what he's talking about is he's talking about we are a part of something. And I love that he jumps into this right away. He's saying that whatever that energy is of mind, of which your brain is just a tool, that has to be everywhere and that we are a part of that. And so he talks about it as all-powerful, omnipotent, omnipotent, all-powerful, all-potent. It has all the power. It is omnipresent. It is everywhere present. And it is omniscient. It is all-knowing. So that energy that is everywhere, that is everything that is you, is all the power, everywhere present, and has all of the information, all of the wisdom, all of the intelligence, all of the knowing that is. And we know from quantum physics that in order for a unity to exist, it must exist in its totality at every point simultaneously. That means all the power is in you now. All the knowing is in you now. And it's everywhere. It's not just in the cool kids. It's not just here. It's everywhere. So if you need to know something, that knowledge is available to you no matter where it is. It's available to you now. If you need to have something that is an exercise of power from the world within to the world without, doesn't matter how big it is, doesn't matter how many people think it's impossible, you have that. It's everywhere present, all powerful, all knowing. There's another one that he didn't use. Omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. What's the other omni? Three?
There's only three.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Why is that important that you understand that that's inside of you?
Because that connects you to the universal mind.
It connects you to everything else. That omnipresence. How about the omniscience? Did you ever think you were too dumb to do something?
No.
Did you ever think you just didn't have what it takes? Boy, I did. I dropped out of school at 15. I was sure I was just the stupidest person in the world. So I took a lot of drugs to reinforce that. I have a doctorate now. But there were many times that I thought I didn't have what it took. That I didn't have, I didn't know enough to do things. And even if it's like, I have an idea for an invention, but I'm not really sure how the details work out. There's a connection within us that knows. I don't know what to do with my life. There's a connection within us that knows. And we can rely on that and trust that we have that information available to us.
So wonderful to know that.
It is. That's what I like about my CSO meetings that I still do, from the Mae McCarthy book, The Path to
I was
Wealth.
going to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when I don't know what to do, I turn it over to the CSO and I just look for signs. I know there is a part of me that has all of this handled, so I'm going to move into gratitude that it's already handled, and it's handled in a way that really is uplifting and inspiring and prospering to me and everybody else, and it reveals itself in a way that is wonderful and that I get it. And then it's my job to look around for the coalescing into form of my consciousness, even though it's not at a conscious level, of that which I choose to have. And as soon as I see it, I'll take that and start to run with it.
Did you define CSO?
Chief Spiritual Operator. Mae McCarthy, our Chief Spiritual Officer from our summer prosperity class. It was our book, The Path to Wealth. Mae McCarthy. We may still have some back there.
And she also encourages using all the senses, as we were speaking about before. You think it, you say it, and then you say it out loud, you read it, and then she encourages you to share the good with somebody else, so you have all those senses.
Right, somebody came in my office just the other day with something wonderful. Oh, it was the Beans got a new car. And Jennifer was here with her new car. She wanted to show it to me. I said, oh, no, no, no. And I took her hand and I'm jumping up and down going, yay, because you have to celebrate that and anchor it in that something wonderful happened. It's a neuro-linguistic programming thing, but you anchor it into your body and you yell and celebrate the good things that happen. So yeah, you're writing your letter of gratitude, you're speaking it out loud, you're visualizing it.
That's right.
And then you're looking all through the day thinking, well, things are going to show up. I'm going to get some kind of guidance here, and it's going to be probably better than I ever thought. So it's my job to pay attention and then to act on that.
Right.
Yeah, great. Knowing. You don't have to know it inside of yourself. You have all the power. You have all of the wisdom, and whatever it is everywhere. It's in you and in everybody else. So if you need something from somebody on the other side of the world, you'll get that. And take a deep breath. Because time and space are two sides of the same coin. If you need something to have happened 20 years ago, that will have happened. Isn't that cool? Yeah. It's so cool. Not only can you have information, but things can go back in the past and shift so that your present moment offers you whatever it is you need. It's wonderful. That's why we can rewrite our childhood. and get a better life. Okay, so those are the omnis, and then we're going to talk about the conscious and the subconscious.
Do you have the numbers for these written down?
The numbers for what?
The bullets.
For the bullets that.
We're still in part one.
What number of
Page 30. 45 bullets in part one.
Do we?
I do in my book.
Well, the number 15 is the world within is the practical world in which the men and women of power generate courage, hope, enthusiasm, confidence, trust, and faith,
Yes.
by which they are given the fine intelligence to see the vision and the practical skill to make the vision real. I love the way he talks.
That's page 29.
Pardon me?
In this
Yeah,
book.
it is on your.
Well, I don't know what page it is.
It's on the top of the
sentence
page.
number 15. My sentences are numbered.
The page number's on the top.
We have different
You
books.
have different books. You have different books.
Oh,
To know
oh,
what number it is. and what
You gotta go by
parts.
the sentence number.
Part 1,
Okay.
number 25. There is but one consciousness in the universe able to think, and when it thinks, its thoughts become objective things to it. As the consciousness is omnipresent, it must be present within every individual. Each individual must be a manifestation of that omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent consciousness. I'm looking for the conscious and the subconscious now. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Kristen. So conscious and subconscious, and one of the things that he says is that your conscious mind is hooked to the world without. And your subconscious is hooked to the world within. And I'm not exactly sure that I agree with this completely, but what he's saying is that on a conscious level, we look around and we see the world the way that it is, the world without. But when we go within ourselves and we start working on that part of us that is what Ernest Holmes would have called the subconscious, or Carl Jung talks more about the unconscious or the subjective aspect of mind, we're dealing with more of our inner being. And so he's saying that you want to use the conscious to go to the subconscious or the subjective. But the subjective and the subconscious is really where the work is going to take place. In Science of Mind, get our little Science of Mind symbol, we have the conscious, the subjective, and then the world of effect or body. And the process goes like this. We use the conscious to direct the subjective part of us, which is, some people have called the unconscious, but there's no part of us that is ever unconscious. But it directs that part of us that handles healing and breathing and creation, that we call spiritual laws, one of the words that we use for that. And he's saying that that's all about the world within. So you don't want to give too much credit to what you think consciously. You want to use your conscious thought to direct your subconscious or your subjective mind. You want to be able to use the way you see the world to be able to deal with life, but don't give too much power to that. We want to affect the change on the subjective level. And to do that, we have to develop what he calls a consciousness of peace, a consciousness of prosperity, a consciousness of health, a consciousness of wealth, a consciousness of love. We develop that inside of us. And what we have learned is that you use your conscious mind, but you're using your conscious mind as a directive to something greater that is what you truly are. So you use your language, you do your affirmations, you think about what you're thinking about, you change your thought, you change your words, you change your feelings, so that you will change that world within, that essence, that nature of who you are, to come back into alignment with the spiritual essence that you are. Does that make sense?
I'm having troubles, and I don't know, well, basically, I have a lot of trouble with fantasizing. And so I have stories running through my mind all the time.
Because you're a writer.
Yeah, but except I'm not writing, but
I think maybe if you write them down, they'll stop running.
I've tried that. Well, the thing is that, so anyway, I need to turn away from them in order to act in reality.
Okay,
Because they suck me right up into their.
so just don't think about them, think about something else.
Well, that's-
Start telling yourself that you're clear and focused and present. Instead of, I have trouble with all these stories running through my head that I refuse to write down,
Well,
even though I'm a writer.
yeah. Well, I get trapped in these stories.
I know, because you're a writer, Jane. You're a writer who won't write. And when you write,
I'm just hoping
you're
not really focused, that's all.
You are a human
I
writer.
know a writer, and they get really weird. And the only way out is through. So, from what I know about writers, they're better off just going ahead and writing it down. But that's
Won't
just
hurt to
me.
try it.
That's not my professional opinion. Pardon me?
I thought, okay, well.
So the conscious mind is all about reasoning, right? You think about it. 2 and 2 make 4, right? No. I get $10 in, or I get $100 in, I've got $150 worth of bills, I give $10 out as my spiritual art of tithing, and I only have $90 left, there's no way I can pay my bills. That's the conscious mind. There's a subconscious aspect of you that says, I get $100 in, I always have more than enough, so I give my money out gracefully and joyfully, and then I always have more than enough money, and you pay your bills. It makes no rational sense. That's the world within. The world without is the rational thought that says 2 and 2 make 4. 100 minus 10 only leaves you 90, you're in big trouble. That's the world without. That's dealing at the level of effect instead of the level of cause. The conscious mind is all about choice, it's directive, it's discriminating in that it evaluates and judges that the things that you might want to have. The subjective mind is all about your intuition. It's all about the idea that it takes everything as the absolute truth. That's why someone can be hypnotized and can be told that they were just burned, and they can develop a burn on their body immediately. And then they can be told that they never were burned, and it disappears immediately. The subjective mind has huge power, but it takes whatever you tell it as the absolute truth. It doesn't have a sense of humor. People say, just kidding. There is no just kidding. It doesn't exist. The subjective mind takes whatever you give it as truth, even if the conscious mind is saying, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. You're not going to be able to get from here to Raleigh in an hour. It takes 4 hours to drive that. That's absurd. Has anybody ever bent time?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do. You can bend time. We do bend time all the time when we find ourselves doing something that we don't want to do and it takes forever. It takes forever. Or we're out having a great time, it just went by just like that. We're bending time. So if we're going to bend time anyway, we might as well learn how to bend it for our use. But you can't do it from your conscious mind, because the conscious mind knows that time is set And you only get so much time, and that's all that there is, and anything else is ridiculous. Except we can change time and space. They're even saying now you can do things like quantum leaping from point A to point B without ever traveling during the space between them. I mean, science is turning into the new spiritualists. Your subjective mind never sleeps. That's why it's important not to sleep with the TV on. Don't do that to yourself, Drew.
I want to point out that this is powerful and it works even when you're joking.
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
yes. There are no jokings. There is no kidding. There are no accidents. There are no coincidences. So it also is the storehouse of your memory and the seat of your habit. So we're going to talk a little bit about memory before the class closes. Do you remember when they first started taking people's brains apart and putting little electrodes in them and shocking them and finding out which part of the brain moves your arm or has this thought or has vision? That was a wonderful exploration that people did for a while, I think until they were banned. One of the things that they would do is they would stimulate a certain part of the brain, and the person's laying on the table, and all of a sudden they start talking about, you know, their 8th birthday party, and little Johnny was there, and they got a red truck, and this and that, and how wonderful it was. And then they found out that little Johnny didn't move into the neighborhood until they were 10. And Johnny wasn't there at the 8th birthday, and they didn't get the truck at the 8th birthday. They got the truck at the 6th birthday or whatever, and that these memories that we thought were so solid and sure were not. And so what that brings up for me, having done years and years and years of therapy on both sides of the couch, is that what I remember and what someone else may be remembering may have nothing to do with fact. So, if we have made up our memories, don't you think it would be a good idea to look at them and assess them and see if we want to keep them or if we want to change them, since we are making them up anyway, and the subconscious mind does not know how to tell fact from fiction. That's why when you hear the Theraflu commercial come on the television, it goes into your subconscious mind and tells you that it's flu season and that you're about to get sick. That's why they sell so much Theraflu. Not that people have flu germs, because we've already noticed that germs aren't really real, but that people get a flu idea. So if we have an idea that maybe served us, that we had a terrible childhood, that we had siblings that were abusive, or parents or neighbors or teachers or whatever, that nobody understood us, and we're just the weird kid, whatever, if we have that made up in our memory, and it is now setting that subjective power within us in motion, that we create that in our world, so that our job experience is either abusive or nobody understands us or nobody likes us or whatever, might it not be a good idea to begin changing those memories? And the first thing, I'm not going to tell you that you've got to just get yourself a unicorn and ride on rainbows and eat Lucky Charms or whatever. But perhaps question whether or not that was really true, and begin to make a little crack in your armor. Is it possible that things were not the way you thought they were? Is it possible that when you go into Ingles and there's a 2-year-old laying in the middle of the aisle screaming that their parents will not buy them a $10 bag of sugar, and the parents are really doing the kid a favor by not doing that, but according to the 2-year-old, they don't get their needs met, life is a very, very terrible thing, they're struggling, they're being abused, all of this stuff, and is it possible that our take on the experience is not really what happened. And then you have a crack in your oh so sure story about who you are. Because if the story about who you are is not creating the who you want to be, then why have it? I mean, you can have a story that you surmounted all kinds of obstacles, that you were, I know that part of my toughness and my strength and my moxie is that I grew up foraging. I grew up going to neighbors' houses and knocking on the door in hopes of, will you give this ratty little kid something to eat? If not, I will steal anything in your yard that's edible. So I know that part of that moxiness that I have came from those situations. And it was a wonderful process that I had with my sister, where we used to feed on each other about all of the terrible, horrible things that happened in our childhood. And there are many therapists that I pay good money to that would affirm for me what a terrible, horrible childhood I had. It's a miracle I'm still alive. And what an amazing person I am that I managed to get out with my skin. So we would meet and we would talk about all of these terrible, horrible things that happened until one day, Margaret was down in Miami and I came down to see her, and she looked at me just with a completely straight face and said, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I had a great childhood."
End of conversation.
I was very upset because the game was over. The game was over. And then after a while, when I processed my emotions and realized that that wasn't helping, I realized what a wonderful opportunity it was to be able to reframe that and to come up with a new childhood. And so, I know that trying to jump to, we had a pony and there were unicorns and puppies that didn't bite me and things like that. That wouldn't have worked for me. But to look at that and say, maybe you're the kid on the floor of the grocery store throwing a temper tantrum, and maybe it was not as you saw it. Maybe things were not the way you saw it, which was a little embarrassing to me because I had such a great story and I used to tell it to people regularly. And to be able to let go of that was such a relief that I didn't have to carry that burden of what an awful time I had. And now, it's just a miracle and science of mind that I'm standing here today. I don't want to be that way. I want to be the person that is a powerful, creative, spiritual being that had so much going on that I could bite off a lot in this life. And I have managed to chew it and swallow it and to grow from it and to expand and to lift everyone else around me up with me. That's the person that I want to be, and to be that way I cannot be a victim. So since the subjective doesn't know whether or not something is real or true, however you want to say it, consider giving it a new past, giving it new memories. I've done that with ex-husbands. It works great. They were not out to get me. They did not intentionally destroy my life. They do not deserve to die. Because if I married somebody at some point, I thought pretty highly of them. My first husband is the father of my child. I swear he is my youngest grandson reincarnated. So how can I hold on to that upset and be any kind of a happy being? So I've got to reframe that. I've got to give myself select